Okay, how you feel. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, a number of you are mentioning feeling, measurable and specific. I saw a comment about being very detailed and specific earlier as well. Okay, thank you, Danielle. Okay, so you'll notice here as the comments continue to come in why it's important, how you'll feel, make it meaningful, right? You'll notice that the feeling piece, for those of you who are curious, as we'll describe more, has to do with if I'm engaged emotionally in a goal, and I don't mean it in the wrong sense of the term, but if I'm not just engaged intellectually, but I'm also engaged emotionally, I will be more likely to follow through because I see the prize as something that I really, really want. And when you attach the emotion, it just makes it more desirable and more attractive and in many ways easier for you to achieve. So my goal ultimately was to attract 100 people to this webinar, which I achieved, right? How am I going to do that? I have a number of items here. I'll email my list. Now, by the way, it's not all about me necessarily. In this case, it is, but it could be where it's a team related thing or an organizational thing. So it could be somebody else is the one who's going to achieve the goal or multiple people even. Either way, in this case, it's me. So I'll email my list 2 times, which I did. I'll post to social media daily, which I'm not sure I did because I've been posting other things as well. And I don't want to make it so one directional, but I did post to social media a few times at least. And I'll also post information to my WhatsApp status. Now, why am I doing all of this? Because by achieving this level of participation, I could add massive value to the toolkits of hard-working professionals while familiarizing them with me and my services, including newly forming mastermind groups. Now, does that sound compelling to you? With 10 being super compelling and 1 being not so compelling. If I'm writing here that I could add massive value to the toolkits of hardworking professionals, have them become more familiar with me and how what I do, including a mastermind, would you say that's a valuable goal? Is that important? Or would you say that that's not so important? Important would be 10 or somewhere near 10. Not so important would be like 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. Okay, I'm sure there's some backstory or some explanation to your numbers, but I'm seeing here, generally speaking, 8 and above, a couple of lower numbers as well, but basically all 8 and above. And I would agree. I think that these are important, right? I want to add to your toolkit. I want to give lots of value to me. That is my mission during this time. I said to myself, what can I do during this difficult period that's going to really add value to my community, create and expand my community, and at the same time familiarize people with the work that I do. And this is something that I came up with, and I'm very blessed to see this level of participation. So that's how I see it, and I'm sure that it looks like many of you agree. All right, how will I do it? I have a process, and how will I feel? I'll feel excited, and I'm excited that I'm going to have a major impact, and hopefully you can all sense and feel my excitement as I am sharing this with you. So that was my goal for today, and that's what we want to think about moving forward. Not every goal has to be this detailed. Not every goal has to take this much time to construct, but the really big ones should include all the components that we will discuss. Okay, so let's take a minute to talk about process versus product. And by the way, I'm going to hold up a book that maybe you'll be able to look at for just a moment. You may want to grab a copy of this book. I did not use it. I did not use it for the purpose of putting together this presentation, but I have found it to be useful. It's called Goal Analysis by Robert Mager, M-A-G-E-R. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because he talks about analyzing our goals, making sure that they are clear and not a fuzzy, as he refers to them. So when we have feelings like I'll be more inspired, right? The question is, how do you measure that? How do you know that you've actually achieved that? He interestingly talks about it a little bit differently than I do, but I did, want to mention that because I'm sort of looking at it now. And the idea here is that we want to focus on the process. We do not want to focus on the product because the product is not in your control. So if you say, like somebody mentioned before, I want to become the CEO, right? That is a goal. There's nothing wrong with having that as a goal, but it's not a goal you necessarily can control. Losing 20 pounds may be beyond your control on some level because your body may or may not respond the way that you want it to. right? To write a 20,000 word book is something that you can control, but it's so big and so difficult and and hard to manage that you may become demotivated before you get started, right? And talking about adding revenue, it's the same idea. Whereas the process that I will do that I predict will get me to the outcome, that is something that's fully within your locus of control. So looking at the left side of the screen for the moment, we're going to focus on these. So if I want to exercise, if I want to lose weight, I'll focus on exercising, or maybe I'll focus on a particular diet and calorie intake. If I want to write a 20,000 word book, I'm going to commit myself to write 500 words a day for X amount of time, with certain days for editing, whatever that might look like. And if I'm going to add revenue, one way I think I might do that is by expanding my sales department. That is something that I can achieve. So if my current sales department is 10 people and I want to expand it to 15, I know that I need to hire 5 people. I need to do so by the beginning of Q2. Obviously 2019 is over and done with. I must have created this a little while back and just updated it for today. But the idea is that regardless of the benchmark, if I know specifically what I want to accomplish, then it becomes more doable. So again, it's focus on process rather than product or outcome. I hope that that was clear. So now you're about to, I'm going to stay on the screen for a moment because I'm going to warn you we're about to take a quiz. All right. So we're going to go through them one by one. And the way that I'm going to ask you to respond, I'm not sure that there's an easier way to do it. Let's use, please maybe even jot this down. Let's do P for process and O for product or outcome as we look at the next screen. Okay, a brief quiz as to what each one is to make sure that I was clear. Are you ready? Here we go. Please take a look at 1 through 5. And in your answer, you could write 1P, 2O or something like that. I'd like to see what you come up with. Again, P stands for process, which was on the left side of the screen. O stands for product or outcome, which was on the right side of the screen. You could do all 5 at a time. That was my intent, but it looks like everybody else is doing them one at a time. So we'll take the answers as we get them. So I'll review the front end of the answers because most of you have already replied to those. Number 1 is an outcome, to be promoted to senior account manager. That is not something that I can specifically work towards. It's an outcome that I hope to achieve, but really have no control over. Number 2, I'll brush my teeth every day after lunch. Absolute control, and probably the outcome would be fewer trips to the dentist, better dental hygiene, whatever it might be. Number 3, when I eat out, I will not eat the bread that comes to the table, only drink water or milk. Only take water. That also is that is process, right? That is not a product or outcome. Number 4 is an outcome that is fitting into a certain size of clothing. And number 5, looking to see if you've already replied, it looks like some of you have. The answer is I will count to 10 before responding is a process. How I will feel might be the outcome, and how the relationship will shift over time will be the outcome. But for the short term, it is a process. Okay, well done, everybody. Wasn't taking individual scores here, but I'm trusting that you got the concept. Okay, so let's talk about SMART. What does SMART stand for? When I say that we're going to have SMART goals, what specifically am I referring to? All right, so let's take a look here to uncover the answer. This is not, by the way, the only answer, as you will see, but these are probably the most common responses. I think everybody holds that the S stands for specific. And in many ways, that's the most important one, right? Very clear on the who, what, where, when, why, if you will, of the goal. So we'll talk about specific examples, pardon the pun, in just a moment. Measurable, attainable or achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Now let's take a look at the next variation. And again, you'll notice that the S remains the same, but the other ones change. So here we have specific, meaningful, agree upon, or action-oriented, results focused or rewarding, and then timely and trackable. I'm going to go back to the previous slide for just a moment so that you can see the comparison / contrast, and then we will move forward. So you probably will notice a little bit of redundancy or maybe synonyms, for lack of a better term, right? These are things that have to be measurable, things that will motivate us, things that we can actually accomplish, things that are relevant to our work or our purpose, things that have time attached to it, or also timely, meaning that things should be done now. I can track them. All these things are going to help our goals be clearer as well as actionable and things that we take action around. Okay, so each one will be broken down in subsequent slides. Do not worry. Let's take a look first at specific. So as I mentioned before, it's kind of like your 5 W's. It's your who, your what, your why, your how. It may include a when, although the when is really more the T, which is the time-bound component. Okay, who's going to do the work? What is the work? Why is the work important? And how? How will I achieve the goal? And how will it make a person feel? Okay, keeping it simple and clearly clearly define what's going to happen is going to ensure that you get the best outcome. The fuzzier that you are with the goal, the harder it's going to be to take action and the harder it will be to measure. So you don't want words that are esoteric like feelings and understanding or conceptual things. You want something concrete that if somebody else looks at it and says, was this done or not? The answer will be either yes or no, right? Not something that I have to intuit in order to figure out. So even if you're trying to improve workplace culture, or you're trying to improve student attitude, you're trying to deal with something like that, minimally you want to ask for what are indicators of that kind of feeling, that kind of environment, that kind of culture, that if I saw these things in action, I would know that the culture is what I want it to be or not what I want it to be. Again, the more specific you are, the more you can track it, the more you can determine if you're on track. Okay, are there any questions here? You don't need to write no. If you have a question about this, please put it in the chat. I want to make sure that this is super clear because I think of all of the content, this is the one that we have to be most focused on to make sure that we get it right. I will look at your responses as I transition, but I want to be mindful of our time as well. Okay, so as we think about the specific, let's also talk about that it should be measurable and meaningful. Okay, so I mentioned this before, anything that's fuzzy is hard to measure. Anything that is concrete is easy to measure. Loss of weight is easy to measure. Exercise, brushing our teeth, writing a proposal, all these things are measurable. Shutting off our smartphones, power, time blocking, completing a to-do list, following up with clients. All of these things are measurable if we attach the right metrics to it. And of course, they should be meaningful, inspirational, something that's going to move us forward. Attainable, achievable, agree upon. I kind of blended all of the common letters into one slide for simplicity. So attainable and achievable are kind of together. They should stretch you, but they should be doable. It's kind of like the difference between, I think we talked about this once before in a previous webinar, the difference between a challenge and there was another one, like basically something that produces stress, right? You can challenge somebody, but at a certain point where the challenge is overwhelming, it just generates stress and people shut down. So you have to be careful to stretch them a little bit beyond, or yourself a little bit beyond your current comfort zone. That's where the real growth occurs. That's where the real learning occurs, but you don't want to go too far. Otherwise, it's going to be demotivating, all right? And on top of it, as we discussed in our delegation seminar, you obviously need to have the appropriate skill set, knowledge, skills, abilities to get the work done. And if you don't, you have to ask yourself, how will I get them? Who will I learn it from? What course will I take? This kind of thing, okay? So it may not be attainable today, but if it's attainable at some point, we're good. And so long as there's kind of like an understanding, if you will, between attainable and the time frame that you attach to it, the two of them are in lockstep one with the other, then you'll be okay. Agree upon. Now, if this is something that involves other people, you need buy-in, right? You need input. You need their support. You need their sense that they're not just being kind of dictated to, right? But that they have an actual role in this and they have a say. The more people feel involved, the better the outcome will be. I think we all know this intuitively, but it's worth mentioning. Now, as far as this one's concerned, again, there will be some reiteration of earlier points when we talk about relevant, for example, and rewarding, right? What is it that's going to motivate somebody to get things done? So the goal should have a clear purpose, right? The timing should be right. Resources need to be in place. Goals should be results oriented, which means that they measure outcomes, not activity. Isn't that interesting? So this is a little bit contradictory to what I said before. I'm glad I caught myself on that, but I think you have both elements to it. I do think that the activities are probably the most important, but they should be the activities. I guess the intent over here, if restated, would be as follows. The activities are what we can measure. The outcome is what's driving this. So for me to say I'm going to have no bread and only water at the restaurant before I start my meal, that is not an exciting or motivating goal. That's just the behavior that I can control. So I want the outcome of losing weight, but I need to put into place the kinds of behaviors that are going to ultimately produce the outcome and not just hope for the outcome for its own sake. So I can't just hope for a promotion. I have to say to myself, what do I need to do to get a promotion? So I think it means creating new relationships. I think it means showing more value. I think it means doing extra work. I think it means getting more referrals or commendations or things like that, or volunteering more in the community, whatever that is, or going back to school, right? Those are the particular activities that will help you measure the ultimate outcome, which is something that is bigger in your final prize. I hope that that is making sense. It's kind of like a yin and a yang. You know, there's the smaller to bigger. It goes both ways. You have the bigger as the goal. You have the smaller as the steps to the goal and the things that you can control. And of course, they have to be rewarding, as we've discussed. Okay. And then the last one relates to time. If you make a goal that has no end to it, like I want to write, I've already written a book. Right? I think it's a pretty good book, actually. Hopefully we'll mention it a little bit later. But the point is I have more books I want to write, not just ebooks. I want to write another regular book. I have not yet, because of everything else I'm dealing with, I've not yet sat down and written the goal. But until I do, with real actionable steps behind it, I know that that book is not going to be written unless I kind of just put together enough blog posts and things like that. Eventually, it kind of comes together. But if I want it to be disciplined, if I want to happen sooner than later, I need to take definitive action and put a time to it. And here's something that I would encourage everybody to do: share your goals with others. We may mention this later formally, but informally, at the minimum, I wanted to mention it now. When other people know what your goals are, when you've created some awareness, whether it's on social media, in a conversation with peers, via email, it doesn't matter. You are going to feel a greater level of accountability to getting it done. People may ask you about it. You don't want to look bad. So it also will motivate you to keep moving forward. Okay, just out of curiosity, just going to go back to those because I can't really see your responses here. Going back to these for a moment, which one would you say, besides for specific and measurable? To me, those are obvious. But of the other ones, which would you say is most important to you in terms of getting that piece really clear and building it into your goal so that it actually gets done? The fact that it's attainable, that you can actually do it, the fact that it's relevant to your work and something meaningful to you, or the fact that it is time-bound. Okay, so most folks have written relevant, some have written time or time-bound. Okay. Interesting that there's nobody writing here attainable or achievable. But I guess the assumption is, thank you, Kelly, for validating me and Denise. But I guess the assumption is that these are goals that if I'm not going to be able to attain them, I'm not even going to attempt them. However, when I'm dealing with a larger institution, a larger group, things like that, that is not always the case. So we do want to make sure that things are in fact attainable as well as being relevant and time-bound. Okay, let's get back to where we were before. So here's another example. I'm going to assume that the answer to this question now is the same as what you told me before, which is you'd like to do this quietly. And what I'd like to ask you to do, please, is review this goal. Take a look at it. It's a goal about writing a proposal. And I want to understand from you again, or at least just have you look at another example of how to apply the SMART goal. We're going to start with the more expanded version, and then I will show you a more compressed version. And if you don't mind, when you're finished reading it and you're ready to continue, please just write done or ready in the chat. So now that I see that some of you are done, I'm still going to give you a chance to finish reading. Those of you who are finished, please tell me what about this particular goal really jumped out at you, resonated, or you have a question about. Okay, thank you for your comments. Those of you who are sharing, feeling of completion, first thing in the morning, achievable plan, different steps instead of just jumping right into it. I don't know how to pronounce your name. If it's Neriluz, and if I didn't get it right, I apologize. No, the whole thing is not just the S. Some of it relates to, well, actually, no, I take that back. This part is, well, sort of. It's the S, but it's not only the S. Like we talk about, for example, the time. Next 4 days would be the time. Is it something that I'm capable of doing? It may not be checked off in this box, but if it's not relevant, then I'm not going to be motivated. So we talk about why this is important, for example, how I'm going to achieve it. Okay, so these things are all part of what makes the goal work. Now let me show you how this goal would look in a different form. Again, you may not have the time, interest, energy to write it out to this degree. I do think if you can, this is the best way to do it because it's going to motivate you. You'll look at it every day. It'll be kind of like your mission statement, at least for this block of time. You'll put it on your calendar. You'll turn off your smartphone. You'll get things done. But here's a variation of that. I'd like for you, I'm gonna let you go back to, we're gonna go back to the other ones soon. But for the moment, look at this one by comparison. Notice how it just sort of checks off the different letters S.M.A.R.T. in different ways. And I'd like to get your thoughts about the two, one compared to the other. Well, to answer your question, Tina, it's how will you feel? So I'm not sure if that answers your question. Why is more about why is this important to me? And why am I choosing to do it at this particular time? A lot of these questions, as you can imagine, could be rewritten in different ways. It's not so much about that. It's really more a matter of making sure that you're addressing all the key elements here. So just out of curiosity, how many of you, I'm not saying will always commit to doing one versus the other. Based on what you think the benefits are for the first version versus the second, which one do you think is the choice that you would choose for yourself? Would it be this initial version over here, which we'll call 1? So just put a 1 in the chat, the longer one, which really details everything. Or would you be more comfortable with something like a checklist, which still has the goal written at the top, but maybe not as detailed? There's no right or wrong here. It's a matter of personal preference. Okay, so that's why we do it this way, because there are different types of learners, different ways that people appreciate getting their information, writing it down, and then of course looking back at it. So whatever is better for you is ultimately the process. If you download the book that I linked up before, I'll see if I still have the URL. I do. I'm going to send it again. Okay, if you want to grab a copy of the ebook that is most relevant to you, like I mentioned before, it is in the appendix. So there's plenty there to work with. All right, let's keep going. Here's another example, and this one relates to client research. Now, no matter which industry you're in, as you've indicated a variety of industries, all of you have clients. Those clients might be your students, it might be their parents, it might be constituents within your community, it might be your real clients and customers that engage with your business on a regular basis, or potential future clients. Either way, I'd like for you to review this one as well and share your thoughts in terms of what jumped out at you and or made this goal particularly actionable and or meaningful. Once again, please indicate when you are finished, and also please add a little commentary about what you're seeing here and why this could be a valuable goal for a business leader or anyone else in a sales-oriented position. Okay, thank you for sharing that you're done. Is there anything here in the goal itself that deserves extra attention? Anything that you want to unpack a little bit? Anything that you thought was particularly insightful? Now's your chance to comment or ask. We've got specifically what it is that has to happen, why it's important, how I'm going to do it, and of course, how I'm going to feel. Okay. Okay, I'm taking a look at your comment, Tina, trying to process it. You are putting practices in place with a number. Okay, I just lost it because the new one came in that isn't the whole, but one that you want to connect with. Okay, so there's some aspiration there. You don't know ultimately what your final number will be, but at least you are going to work towards it. And no one guarantees that the goals will be achieved, but we know that if I don't even have the goal, right? I think Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Or Yogi Berra once said, these are, I guess, all my sports analogies. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? So we all know the cliches, we all know the quotes. The main idea is we have to have a path, a desire to go forward, and then we have a chance. Okay, Yitzhak talked about having information gathering, feedback as a school leader. You don't provide our education product. Okay. Um, yeah, so that's a question maybe we should take offline. You know, how much research should I be asking from particular individuals? Do constituents genuinely have a voice? I think when it comes to teacher feedback in particular, it's a bit of a complicated and touchy subject. I'm not going to go there right now, but I think that wherever feedback is appropriate, and you can decide what that is for you, this is an example of how to go ahead and get there. Let's see if we can do this in a shorter version as well. Okay, again, take a look at this one and see if stylistically, those of you who voted for number 2, if you would continue to do so in this setting as well. Richard, please adjust to all panelists and attendees and elaborate on what you mean by incomplete task. AJ, you are not wrong. There are 2 elements to this goal, right? There is the back end work as well as the actual work, but really they're one and the same. If my goal is to complete a proposal, I need to, number 1, learn how to do it, and then I need to actually take action, right? So there are layers to goals. Some goals I could take action on immediately, which is control my intake of calories. Some of them require learning or preparatory pieces, setting up a survey, something like this. So depending on your goals, you may have multiple pieces, or you may just choose to tease them out as separate goals. That's also fine. But having the big picture, what you're really trying to accomplish, and then the various steps within it, how you structure it is up to you. The main thing is you have a clear path to your outcome and you're taking the right steps to get there. Yeah, and Kelly, in the ebook that I hope you will download, there are examples for teams as well, because this can be a more multi-layered, multifaceted concept. Thank you all. I'm sorry I'm not responding to everybody, but I am trying to be mindful of the clock and make sure that we get everything in. Here's another example just in the shorter version, and I hope that this one also resonates with everybody. I will give you a moment to read. Once again, you can reply that you are done when you are ready, or ready when you are done, or both, whatever you want. And hopefully you see how it all comes together. This is what I want to achieve. The ultimate goal is a better, now this, by the way, is a perfect example of a fuzzy, right? Cultivate stronger workplace relationships. How will I know it when I see it, right? Now, I don't know that this fully answers that question. I don't know that it fully answers the question. I don't know if it'll be intuitive because I see happier, better connected people. Maybe I use a before and after survey. Maybe I look for other indicators. And that's why this goal could be made clearer and deeper. So again, be mindful of the fuzzy. Share your goal with somebody else because you think in your mind you are clear. But if somebody else is not, it's the same thing with having an editor when you write a book or an article. Having somebody else who's not in it will give you an external perspective that you presently do not have. So having that in mind is very important. I'm not sure what you mean, Danielle, when you say, should time work against what you plan? In other words, if you need to adjust it on time, the answer is yes. You could adjust any goal, either rip it up and start again, or you could just adjust it. I mean, you're making the goal, so you're in charge, and you have that flexibility. Measurable and time-bound are not necessarily the same thing. Time-bound means that there's a time attached to it as well as being timely, that it should be done now. Measurable means I can measure that I'm doing it. I'm measuring the specific behaviors or actions necessary. So in this case, the time is the 3 months, the 30 minutes, and well, it's the 3 months. That's how much time I'm giving myself, and I'm doing the frequency, all the touch points. It's something attached to time, but it's something also that I can measure within that time. I hope that that was clarifying. Part of the screen, frankly, gets cut off with me with my image as well as with the chat. So sometimes I don't see all the words on a particular screen. Anyway, whenever we're thinking about goals, we want to remember the 3 C's. We want to clarify what it is that we want, contract with the ones who need to get the work done, make sure that they're on board, and then make a commitment. And making a commitment also is saying, what will stop you from doing this? What do you imagine or envision could get in the way, not including Corona, but just in general, what can you imagine getting in the way that would prevent you from completing this task? And the more above board you are, and the better, put it in writing. Get it really clear as necessary with the individual that you're working with. Clarify, contract, commit. Okay? The latter two are similar. The first one is obviously important in and of itself, what needs to be done. Okay? So assuming for the moment that I would put you to work, this would be what that would look like. Okay? And you'll notice that there are a number of questions here. I would encourage you maybe to take a screenshot of this particular one, but this is literally cut out of that ebook. So I keep referencing it because I think that it's important, and I'm going to include the link again because I can. I knew I can. All right. And so I wanted to share that with you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here with this, but if you see the questions and you use this, you'll notice that the right column is open. The right column is available as a checklist. So you can go through this. For those of you who like graphic organizer and like visuals, which I think most of us do, this is my gift to you for showing up today and for being interested in growing and setting goals that make things happen. So make sure that your goals are specific, as we've talked about, that you'll be able to measure and know that they were accomplished. That deals with the fuzzies we talked about before. Make sure that things can be accomplished. What are the steps that we need? What are the resources necessary? Is this worthwhile? Is now the right time, right? Is now the right time for me to be making webinars, guys? Yes or no? Is now the right time for this? I hope you'll say yes. I think it is, right? Is this goal in line with my long-term objective? Of course it is, because I want to add value now, and I want to, of course, be a resource for everybody down the road as well. And is it time-bound? If I commit to 3 webinars a week for the next 6 weeks, that kind of thing, yes, it's time-bound and it's due, and I'm going to work on this goal right away, and I'm going to make sure that I update it every week. And as I think I've already mentioned to you, I already got next week's pretty much uploaded on my website, except for the Thursday one, but you'll be getting emails about that as well. So here are my questions. Now, please stop answering yes to the last one so that you could answer hopefully yes to the next one. So I'm going to wait 10 seconds. Please don't reply anything until I finish reading all 3, and then I will invite you to respond. So were we successful? Number 1, do we have a clear, or at least a clearer, hopefully clear, understanding of what SMART goals are? Number 2, can you review examples? Did we review examples of well-structured business-related goals as well as personal goals? And number 3, did we have opportunity, at least in your own space? Hopefully, you've taken the goal that you had in mind earlier and you've practiced developing your SMART goal so that you can use it today, tomorrow, soon. Because we keep talking about this, but I'm not going to stop. It's use it or lose it. And if you want to gain from these webinars, you must take immediate, definitive action so that you can benefit. Okay, 2 yes, 3 yes, 1 yes, oh, yes, yes, yes. All right. Okay, now I didn't include the specifics over here, but I'm going to try to remember them orally. Tomorrow there will be one at 1 o'clock. All of these are 1 o'clock. And by the way, for those of you curious, it just worked better for my family to move it from 2 o'clock to 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, which is now 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific. So I apologize if that inconvenienced anybody, but I have to make sure that I can survive in my own house to give you these webinars. So if I'm sort of think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if I can't, survive physically because my kids and my wife will kill me for intruding in their space at the wrong time, then I won't be of any value to any of you. All right. So go to the site, impactfulcoaching.com/upcoming webinars. I'm going to link that up for in the chat right now. So please go there. You will find all that information. Tomorrow is on teacher leadership. So anybody who is a teacher, anyone who didn't get the recording, by the way, and you weren't on there, go to my YouTube channel, which I'll see if I have the link handily for that as well. My YouTube channel, I have everything from past recordings. Looks like I don't have it here. I'm not sure I'll be able to get it in time, but minimally, you can get my future emails and you will find, actually, I think I can grab this real quick. Let's see here. This is the view as me. So let me remove some of that, and I'm hopeful that this will work. Can somebody please click on that YouTube link real quick and tell me if it is working? Okay. Meanwhile, next week, I've got one on Tuesday on rubrics. Okay. Rubrics are fabulous and very important tools for anyone creating anything that matters, whether it's a teacher who wants a project done properly, whether it's a boss who wants to see something done effectively in the workplace. Be really, really clear on what are the criteria, what are the gradients of quality, what demonstrates excellence, what demonstrates the opposite. Rubrics can be very, very powerful. So I'd encourage you to do so. Are you saying, Joanne, that it does not work? Okay, then I have to figure out why not. But you could search for me on YouTube. That will work. That for sure you will find me. Okay, so I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. Let's see if over here, if I do it this way, will it open up for me? It looks like, hang on 1 second, everybody, while I check it. Yeah, it worked for me. So hopefully it'll work for you as well. Okay, and then Wednesday, I'm doing one on productivity. Very valuable. I have a productivity blueprint. It's a multi-step or multi-series offering. Going to go through many productivity steps each week for the next few weeks. And then on Thursday is that joint offering I mentioned before about student. Yeah, you may have to grab it and click on it. I'm not sure. So I apologize. But by the way, if I didn't mention this earlier, please do find me, connect with me on social media. On Twitter, I'm @ImpactfulCoach. Everywhere else, I'm Naftali Hoff, all one word. Okay, now, how can you help support my mission? I really hope that these are adding value to you, and it would mean so much to me if you could help me keep this going. There are costs involved. Obviously, there's a lot of work involved, a lot of time spent delivering this content to you free of charge, and I'm going to commit to continuing to do so. It's not just educators, it's leaders. Anyone can be on this call. There's a way by which to make a meaningful a contribution. Any size is appreciated. Everything adds up and helps this continue. I'm going to include all the links over here. The next one is if I could help you and your school or your organization with a webinar now, with a talk later, with a consultation, with coaching, with professional development of any kind, please do reach out and be in touch with me, because I want to be able to serve you as best I can. And as I mentioned before, a copy, let me just grab one so that you could actually see it, quote, in the flesh, Becoming the New Boss, which many people think is a very, very well written book, especially for new leaders, but for leaders of all kinds. It will give you lots of leadership nuggets in a very easy to digest fashion with stories, my own personal backstory as well, how I kind of got into and then eventually transitioned out of school leadership. So any of those would be meaningful to me. And if you do any of them, please shoot me a note. Let me know. I want to be able to thank you personally for helping to support the mission. And if you're planning on doing anything now, please put that in the chat, inspire others to make a contribution, inspire others to take action. That's going to help them and help all of us to continue to grow. Now, I talked about some goodies. Here is the one, the stress management ebook. Let me share the link with you in the chat. Okay, that's this one over here. We know that stress is a big deal in today's day and age, and of course, any resources that we can get that will help us minimize stress, reduce anxiety, and get more work done, it's going to be helpful. So I encourage you to grab that. Just click on all the links now, open them up, have them in your browser. You look at them when we're done, but this way you have them. And the last one that I'm going to share with you, I think it's the last one, are my resources for productivity, because productivity is something we all want to be doing a better job with, especially when we feel that our lives are unstructured. So go ahead, be productive, do what you can to get resources, take the assessment. It doesn't take more than a couple of minutes, get some feedback about your current level of productivity, and then go grab a copy of the blueprint for tactical, practical strategies to become more productive. So I hope that these resources are valuable. I hope that you will choose to support the mission that I've created here. I hope that you will continue to be part of my community. And before we go, I would be remiss if I didn't include one last time those resources. Please share your feedback about the mastermind that you would like to be part of potentially, or at least you think you have some insight. I just shared the link with you. Find the one, whether you're a business leader, a school leader, a master teacher, go ahead and, or educator in general, go ahead and find the one that works for you. Take a couple of minutes, do me a favor. I'm trying so hard to give. I'm asking for just a few small things in return. If it's not too much of an inconvenience, go ahead and complete that. And again, it will give you priority seating at the table at the right time, should you decide that you want to move forward with being a member of, oh, Laura, that's so kind of you. Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing that. I really hope you'll enjoy it, and maybe one day we'll meet in person, and I can personally inscribe it for you. And since there's so many folks in New York and New Jersey, I'm excited about the possibility of meeting all of you one day somewhere, if nothing else, just for a cup of coffee, but maybe for so much more as well. So I think that's it. We've wrapped up a very powerful presentation on lots and lots of content. I hope that this was meaningful to you. One of these days, I'm planning to send out a survey just to find out how I can do these webinars even better. But the fact that people keep coming back is an indication that at least we're doing something right over here. Thank you all. Thank you, one. Thank you. And let's continue the conversation soon. Have a blessed day. Stay safe. And may we all continue to only experience good things together. Really, really appreciate you being part of this community. And we'll see you soon. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye now.